Hello and welcome. I'm Anand Naidu, sitting in for Riz Khan. As the tragedy unfolds in Haiti, some relief agencies are expressing concerns about children who've been affected by the disaster. They're often seen as the country's most vulnerable victims. Even before the earthquake last week, there were 380,000 orphans in Haiti. Now that number will rise. For days, children have been wandering the streets looking for their families. Aid workers warn that up to 2 million children may be at risk of being orphaned. In their desperation, hundreds have fled Port-au-Prince to find help in neighboring towns. Some of the children are traveling alone, while others lost their parents on the way. Besides the trauma of the disaster and separation from parents, the children face the risk of disease and neglect. So today we ask, what is being done for Haiti's most vulnerable victims? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or email, and we also welcome your phone calls on the show. Joining me today is Patrick McCormick, the Emergency Communications Officer for the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. He has dealt with natural disasters in Myanmar, Bangladesh, and now Haiti. He joins us from New York, and with me here in Washington is Lisa Laumann, the Associate Vice President of Save the Children, a global organization helping children in need around the world. Save the Children currently has a team on the ground in Haiti helping with emergency relief work. Patrick McCormick, let me start with you. UNICEF has set itself a target of $127 million for the Haiti relief effort. How's that going?
I believe the fundraising is going very well. It's been, I think, some of the most generous outpourings of, in a response to a disaster since the tsunami. So on that front, we're in good shape.
And what do you plan to do with the money? How will that money be distributed or used?
Well, this is a massive humanitarian operation and a very expensive one. We're sending in supplies for children and women, for everybody needs them. As we speak, we've had 3 plane loads going in. It's a very expensive operation because logistically it's very challenging. This is a country which had very poor infrastructure anyway. And as you've seen the pictures on the television, getting the supplies to the people who need them, especially the children, is the #1 priority now and the most difficult thing to do right now.
So how will the funds be used?
Well, the funds are used to purchase the supplies. I mean, I can give you an example of one supply which is coming in, which are these very big mess hall tents, which we use for shelter, obviously, but also as safe spaces for children and their mothers, as makeshift schools, as places where children can be vaccinated, where they can play, where they can be safe.
Okay, let's bring in Lisa Laumann with me here in the studio. What kind of a presence does Save the Children have in Haiti?
Save the Children's been working in Haiti for quite a long time now, 20 years or so, I think. And we have 4 offices already in country, as well as extensive links in other regions of the country. So we have a reasonable on-the-ground presence, I'd say quite a good on-the-ground presence. Obviously, our staff in Port-au-Prince and the surrounding areas have been affected, but we've identified most of them, and we're starting our programming now to respond to the emergency.
So to some extent, you're familiar with the problems that the country faces. I mean, as we've been reporting, as we've been talking, there were 380,000 orphans in the country before this earthquake struck. So you know what you're dealing with.
Yes, we do, and we think that the number of orphans is likely to increase substantially. We also are concerned about the number of children who are separated from their families. When the earthquake struck, children were leaving school. They were on their way home from various parts of the cities to return to their families. So in addition to children who may have been killed or injured, there may be large numbers of children who are simply separated from their families and need help to try to reunite with them.
Let me go back to Patrick McCormick. Mr. McCormick, you've faced similar challenges in dealing with disasters of this type. As we mentioned, one of the countries was Bangladesh. Is this situation very similar, or are they all very different?
They're all different, and they're all challenging in their own ways, and none of them are simple. I mean, if I think of Myanmar, there was the politics, the difficulty getting people in there. Bangladesh, probably the simplest one that you've mentioned that I've worked on. Some of these countries have had so much experience of dealing with natural disasters. They come around every 1 or 2 years that they're getting much better at obviously mitigating loss of life and damage to property. But as I say, every disaster is different and none of them are simple. And this one is very, very difficult.
Now, besides taking care of children in Haiti, Patrick McCormick, what are the other options that an organization that UNICEF would look at? I mean, would you look at things like perhaps sending orphans to other countries?
Well, that's not really our business, and I have to say that the discussion about orphans has been going around for these last couple of days. We're in a search and rescue life-saving operation right now. What we need to do is to find, feed, water, and take care of these orphans or unaccompanied children before we start thinking about inter-country adoption, which would have to have, I mean, we need to trace and register these children to find out whether they are indeed orphans. So I think it's a bit early to talk about that.
And Lisa Lohman, the workers that you have in Haiti at the moment, what are the major challenges that they're facing right now?
The major challenges that I just heard about 15 minutes before I came here, were the challenges of logistics and getting the needed supplies in the country. We know that there may be supplies that can come in from other parts of Haiti to the affected areas, but a lot of this is going to need to come in from the outside, at least from for the time being. And so having good logistics systems and good security systems to protect aid workers, to protect children and their families will be very important for us.
Well, that's something I want to ask you about because, you know, as we mentioned, children are probably the most vulnerable group in this disaster zone. How are they protected?
Well, children's best protection is often with their families. So to the extent to which we can reunite children with their families and ensure that families have the help they need to care for their children, that's the most important thing. We need good security on the streets and on the roads, so there needs to be patrolling by police or military, peacekeepers. We need people in communities to be working together to try to protect children, to keep their eyes out for them, to report problems to children, to the authorities, to UN agencies, to international or national organizations, to make sure that children are cared for and protected. And we need people to give their time and support so that we can make sure that schools can be reestablished, children can be reunited with their families, they have opportunities to play and learn, and they have good nutrition and good health care.
About schools being reopened, we heard that from a Haitian relief worker as well over the past few days, saying that schools have to be reopened, the kids have to go back to school, so there is some semblance of whatever could be called normality over there. But is that practical? Is that realistic?
It may be a difficult challenge in the coming weeks and maybe even the coming months, but there are things that we can do short of reestablishing schools and curricula to help children get back to a sense of normal and to have regular schedules in their lives. We can open play centers for them, places where they can go and spend a few hours a day. Someone's caring for the children, a little bit of burden is taken off of the shoulders of the parents, and kids have the opportunity to interact with other children, practice, play, do the normal things that children do, and gain a sense of normality.
We have an email here, and this came from Luciana Di Floriano in Italy. And I want to ask you, Lisa, the email says, I think that governments should simplify and speed up adoption procedures and avoid useless bureaucracy. Haiti's children could then quickly find a new home. Does Save the Children deal with anything like that?
Save the Children doesn't deal in international adoption, so it's hard for me to speak directly to it. But I think it's important to remember that international guidelines suggest that one of children's fundamental rights is to be with their parents and to be cared for by their parents. Similarly, parents have a right to be with their children. So in some cases, this type of adoption may be necessary. But as Mr. McCormick said, first we think it's important to identify and try to reunite children with their existing immediate or extended families.
Mm-hmm. And Patrick McCormick, in the short term, do you get the sense that the relief effort is improving, that relief supplies and things like medicines are getting through?
I think the tide is turning. Probably in the last day, although there still is a bottleneck at the airports. We talk about one airport with a lot of stuff coming in. The US military are there, aid agencies, NGOs, everybody trying to get their stuff in. I would say that what's improved is the supplies getting from there to the various parts of the capital and to other parts and to the people who need it. And I would hope to see that speeded up. I mean, for me, it's just going to get better now.
We have a question here, Patrick McCormick, from one of our viewers in New Jersey here in the United States, Alison Lazaro. And she writes, what will happen to the children who've been orphaned by the recent quake? Will they initially get financial assistance or anything else be provided for them?
Well, about financial assistance, I'm not sure what exactly that means, but of course they will be assisted. If there are indeed orphans and they haven't just been separated from their families, they have no extended family members where they can stay, then we're going to have to find some sort of solution for them, and will do. So they will be taken care of.
Lisa Lemon, we talked earlier on about the security situation concerning children. One of the problems that children in Haiti face is that of child smuggling. We've heard that there was a report done, actually it was done by UNICEF, and the report was done around about 2001, 2002, and found that Dominican border officials were letting human traffickers cross from Haiti in exchange for payments for these children. Do you think that's going to be a grave danger that children are going to face in Haiti now?
I think it's a risk unless people are very vigilant. That's one of the challenges now, with a great deal of international concern about the situation of children in Haiti. We need to make sure that those children are documented, that they're registered, that we've made every effort to care for them, to reduce the risk that they're going to be put into situations that will place them into trafficking and into ultimately very difficult situations for them.
And as you say, Save the Children have been in Haiti for something like 25 years. So you've had experience of working there. We're hearing to a large extent that much of the government infrastructure has collapsed, and much of it, in fact, wasn't working, was non-functioning even before this earthquake. What are the structures that are in place there to look after children?
Well, I think government is present, although strongly affected, and so we are continuing to work closely with the government, with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, social welfare agencies to try to support children. In addition, there's a large amount of international coordination. And child protection is one of the areas for a great deal of coordination. There are people meeting right now in Geneva trying to understand what the biggest needs are and address them. There are standards and guidelines that we're increasingly sharing. And so together we will try to provide the most efficient and effective service and support to children that we can.
Okay, we are going to have to take a short break right now. More of our discussion in a moment. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're discussing the devastation in Haiti, particularly among the country's most vulnerable victims, its children. But before we resume the discussion, we will be joined by Tony Bertley, Al Jazeera's Tony Bertley, in a short while. But let's go back to our guests. Joining us from New York is Patrick McCormick of UNICEF, and here with me in the studio is Lisa Lahman of the organization Save the Children. Lisa Lahman, let me go back to you. Does Save the Children look at any long-term solutions for the orphan children, or just children themselves in Haiti or any other place in the world?
We certainly do. We our programming, even before the earthquake happened, included health programming, livelihood support programming, education programming, and programming at the community level and with government to protect children. So we anticipate that we'll continue that type of programming. Obviously, our focus now, to a large extent, is going to be focused on emergency recovery, but always with our programming, the purpose and the intent is to use the opportunity, or use the programming that we have to do, I should say, to help us get back to longer term programming for children. So we anticipate that we'll be helping to improve the quality of early childhood development in country, and to improve the health of children in that country as well as other areas.
Okay, I'm told that we now have our correspondent Tony Bertley. He's in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. Tony, I hope you can hear me. What's the latest as far as the relief effort is concerned right now?
Well, I think the aid operation is underway, but it's very, very slow indeed. I've been to the airport today and I've seen aid coming in, but it doesn't seem to be going out very well. There doesn't seem to be a line of organisation which is taking the aid to the people who need it. So that seems to be a bit of a problem. Also, the aid is not coming over the border from the Democratic Republic either, so you don't have this problem, and people are getting more frustrated by the day. We're getting more people actually dying, I think, as a result of this, because the slowness of the aid operation is meaning that people are not getting what they need, they're not getting the medicine, they're not getting the help, and every day that goes by is a day wasted and another life going.
So if that is the case, with aid not getting through at the speed at which one would like it to get through, can you give us a sense of what conditions are like on the ground there? I mean, where are people living, and is there any kind of order being maintained right now?
Well, there is a strange kind of order in a very strange way. I mean, there are tens of thousands of people living outside in parks, in wasteland. They've got temporary shelters there. even people who had houses which were not affected in the quake, they're very frightened about aftershocks coming in or another quake, so they prefer to be out in the open. So there is some sort of order there, and people are going about some seemingly normal business. I mean, this is a country where the people have been used to suffering and pain, and they seem to get over it quite quickly. I mean, if you go to the streets, you'll see dead bodies in the streets and people walking by like it's like something they do every single day. I've been to the hospital, and I think at the hospital, the general hospital, it gives you a good taste, a good idea of what's going on. A lot of international medical teams are coming in, they're trying to help now, but the chief Haitian surgeon there was telling me that at the moment they're performing 25 operations per day. They need to perform about 150. Amputations are going on, but you see dead bodies a few meters away from patients who have been treated. I mean, that brings home to you exactly what's happening, and there's a smell of death everywhere you go, a very odorous, decaying flesh that is overwhelming in parts of the city.
And with all the buildings destroyed, with so much destruction around you, are people just living on the streets in the open?
They're living in the open, but now we're going back to the buildings and they're actually rummaging through, they're scavenging for whatever they can. As one man said to me, for 3 days I was crying for my father who was in one of the buildings. Now I'm crying for my family, I'm trying to save them. So they're getting whatever they can from these buildings. It could be chairs, it could be computers, and they are bartering this and exchanging this for food. This is the only way they can survive. And there is a growing sense of frustration, but also a growing sense of realization that this is their lot. But I think certain sections, as we've seen today, isolated cases of frustration and violence, maybe that will grow if this aid operation doesn't actually become a meaningful operation which it needs to do to meet Haiti's needs.
It's now been a week since this disaster struck, and is there any hope that there would be people found alive in the rubble?
I think there's always hope. We've seen from past earthquake disasters, Sichuan in China, for example, that even 7 or 8 days after the quake, people are still found alive. It's hard to actually imagine that when you see some of these buildings. I think they were very flimsy in construction anyway, but they've just collapsed like a pack of cards, like a pancake. You'll see 4 or 5 story buildings which are flattened. So it's hard to imagine that anyone can survive in that, but there is always hope. But at the moment, the focus is actually on the people who are injured, the people who are living, more than the people that may be buried now. This hope is dimming by the day.
And looking at the security situation, we've heard a lot being said about the security situation in Haiti. The United Nations has announced that it will be sending more police, 1,500 more policemen to Haiti. What can you see and tell us about the security situation around there in the capital, Port-au-Prince?
Well, we've been driving around the city today for a number of hours, and we've seen a lot of UN police, and we've seen Brazilian UN peacekeepers, Nepalese, Bangladeshis, and we've seen more and more Americans. I think there is a sufficient presence, but if people get more frustrated, of course you've got a city of 2 million people here, and there's some very poor people and very desperate people. So as the time goes on, that desperation may manifest into sort of violence, and I don't see what can happen. We've already had an incident where someone was shot dead, a so-called looter. But, you know, are they really looters? I mean, they're going for things to exchange for food. Is that really a crime? And some people will say that's not a crime. So it's a very desperate situation, only going to get worse unless the aid situation matches the needs.
All right, thanks, Tony. Tony Bertley there talking to us from Port-au-Prince in Haiti. Let's go back to Patrick McCormick. He is from UNICEF. He's talking to us from New York. Patrick, have you heard Tony Bertley there? That is not a pretty picture, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, all I can say is that from a UNICEF perspective, and we're by no means the biggest player here in distribution of aid, not at all, it has increased over the last couple of days. It certainly isn't, as your correspondent said, meeting the needs of every single Haitian by any means. And we are at a critical point right now where, you know, unless there is a significant improvement, I think it's going to improve, we could be looking at outbreaks of violence and desperation. We've already seen a few isolated episodes, which is obviously the last thing that we need in this operation.
Lisa Larman, how do you see the days ahead unfold?
I think they're full of work, actually. There's a lot to be done. Our staff are out there now doing assessments in the areas of health and nutrition, child protection. They'll be looking at education issues shortly, and I think that the need is tremendous. There are so many people who have been affected by this emergency, and so I think that we will be working closely with other humanitarian assistance organizations and the government. We'll be spending long hours designing projects, writing proposals, coordinating with other organizations, meeting to try to ensure that the most efficient way of delivering services is the way that we go forward with. I think it'll be a long time. It will take quite a while until that part of the country gets back to any kind of normal.
You know, listening to our correspondent there, it's evident that so much help is needed for so many people. If you had to prioritize things, how would you do that?
Well, I think at this stage of the emergency, search and rescue is really a priority, and taking care of people's basic human needs. So finding people who are injured, trying to save as many lives as possible, prioritizing healthcare support, not just the surgical support that's so desperately needed, but also the primary healthcare support. Children, the #1 killers of children around the world are diarrhea and pneumonia. This can only be a growing issue there.
I'm going to give the last word to Patrick McCormick in New York. Patrick, how do you see things unfolding in the next few weeks?
I agree with my colleague. It's going to be a long haul. Right now, it's food, water, medicine, and shelter. We need to get it in. We need to get enough of it in, and we need to get it in fast.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Patrick McCormick of UNICEF joining us from New York, and with me here in the studio was Lisa Lahman from Save the Children. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
And thank you for being with us. Remember, you can download a free podcast of our show on iTunes. This week, we're featuring a conversation with the top UN envoy to Afghanistan, Kai Eide. On the next show, we begin a series of discussions on US President Barack Obama's first year in office. We begin by taking a look at the impact of the Obama presidency on race relations and on African Americans. Make sure to tune in for that. We'll see you the next time.